Interfaith dialogue not only creates bonds with others, but it also nourishes one's own faith. In this episode, we will compare Christianity and Buddhism. Father Fredericks is an expert on Buddhism and quite close with the Venerable Dr. Kenneth Park. They have learned a lot from each other, and in this episode, we will learn from them.
I'm a theologian, and so I pay a lot of attention to doctrine, to teachings, okay? And there's some Buddhist teachings that just are not compatible with Catholic teachings, okay? It's a different way of looking at the world. My Buddhist friends do not expect me to water down my Catholicism, my Catholic faith, in some way that I think might be more acceptable to them. They don't want it. They don't want that. They want me to be a Catholic, because they're interested in what Catholicism is all about. And I can certainly say, I don't want my Buddhist friends to water down their teachings in some way that might make me happy. What makes me happy is when they are really living out the teachings of the Buddha, living out what they call the Dharma. I don't want anything besides that. And there are some ways in which Buddhism is remarkably similar to Catholicism, remarkably. And there are other ways in which it is astoundingly different, astoundingly different. And I just want to say, if I may, where is my learning edge? Where do I find Buddhism most exciting? I find it to be most exciting where it's most different, not where it's the same. This has happened more than once, but especially I remember this one particular story. How is Buddhism and Christianity, in general, including Catholicism, how are they different? Well, Christianity has the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that made heaven and earth. And in a way that is truly puzzling to me, in a wonderful way it's puzzling to me, Buddhism has nothing of the sort. They're not atheists particularly. They're not agnostics. They're certainly not theists. They're not believers in God. Buddhism works very, very differently. And I think this difference in belief really carries over to some profound questions for how we live our life. So after a long discussion about the transcendent otherness of the God of Christianity, and yet this transcendent God that is so utterly other than this world is still a person. It's a person to whom you can cry out when you're suffering, cry out when you're anguished. And I told a story about a time when my sister had grown very, very ill. And I told my Buddhist friends how just this crying out is now we're way beyond the issue of belief. Crying out to this transcendent person who is loving. Protect my sister. Protect my sister. The Buddhists were very impressed with what I had to say. And I know the feeling because I have this feeling myself too. The Buddhists were looking over at me and say, I can't believe how different Christianity is from Buddhism. I can't believe how different. Do you see what's going on here is from a very personal way, they are relating to my suffering. But my response to the suffering was to call out to this transcendent God, the maker of heaven and earth, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that is Jesus' father, Abba. Buddhism is different. There is nothing like this in Buddhism. So I remember then, sometime after that, one of my Buddhist friends said, a monk, a wonderful man, a wise and gentle man, very gentle. He said, Jim, I am so impressed when you start sharing your faith. I'm so impressed. Even though the belief doesn't make sense to me, when you tell the story of your faith, I'm very grateful to you. And I hope that when you die, that you'll quickly be reborn as a Buddhist, and you'll get over this belief in God. No, understand. He was not being haughty. No. This is who he is. This is exactly who he is, okay? And he said this out of great love and compassion for me. Buddhism, Christianity, in some ways they are so similar. And in other ways they are so different. And what we need to do, we need to build communities of Catholics, Christians, and Buddhists coming together, working. No, we're not going to dilute the gospel. We're not going to dilute the Dharma. Buddhism and Christianity are not completely different, nor are they completely the same. No. Rather, I want the difference to be part of the tension that gives life to the group. Whoa, these Buddhist people, I haven't got them figured out yet. That there are things going on in the hearts and in the lives of my Buddhist friends that keep me on edge, that make me wonder and curious, and I want them to teach me, and I want Buddhists to be able to say the same thing, that they have great, loyal Catholic friends who are willing to teach, first of all, by example, but then, of course, in dialogue, to teach by means of a sharing of faith, a conversation in which we share faith with one another.
Like I dare to use the word like Roman Catholic. Maybe today's interview, first time I really mentioned about particular denomination. I was fascinated about their system. Understand? They're very systematical system they have. Here to there, step by step. A system. Even the Buddhism, we have 600 years longer than Christianity. But the Christian, their system, is far ahead than the Buddhist. The Buddhist is very, very sloppy. You know what I'm saying? So what I learned about this Western religion is so systematic. And their lay out, their blueprint is so precise. I was really fascinated about that. Another one is, their social service. The school and hospital, social service. The very broad way of how helping people, that was fascinating. Because the Buddhism is way behind it. See, maybe Buddhism we have a very humanized philosophy, because our philosophy just for the human, not something else. But I'm very proud of it, because people always start with the people and end with the people. This is the people's religion. But this is system, and this is like a social service, how the involvement of the community. This is really lacking, So, last almost 37 years, the U.S. and I used to live in Europe, was many, many years, very much the same. And their involvement is that this is what we should learn, So I really like to say the Buddhist people to participate to the many social the event or the society or community. I really like to encourage, because Buddhist people somehow, I don't know, it's not really, we're not really teaching about not to participate. We really encourage people to do that, but somehow Buddhist people have a less conviction on to follow their rules or obedience. This is a big difference, like Christian people, their obedience toward the religion is far stronger than Buddhist people. Buddhist people are very slow, and we call the part-time Buddhist. They are Buddhist, but they only a few times a year to go to temple. But the Christian, they go more often, and they're very practically, they practice their religion very faithfully, they have good conviction. Buddhist people is far behind it. I have to say that.
Here is a teaching that comes from Buddhism that is of great value to me as a Christian. Very easily, we make a God out of our own ego. And it is a terrible God to worship. It is a horrible God to worship. It's a God that is intolerant, that is punishing, that is judgmental. This God is no fun whatsoever. There's no compassion in this God. And Buddhism teaches that this God, which we make out of our ego, is an illusion. Now get the teaching. The teaching is really subtle. That the God we make out of our ego is an illusion, but it's a very real illusion. Do you see this? Did you see the teaching? The teaching's remarkable. The illusion's real. It's powerful. As a matter of fact, some might argue that this illusion, this God that we worship, that we make of our ego to worship, is the most powerful force in the universe. You could make an argument in support of that. And Buddhist practice tries to take apart this idol, this false God, to take it apart day by day by day, piece by piece by piece, compassionate act by compassionate act. You see, Buddhists don't believe in God. But again, they don't believe in the ego either. One at a time, slowly, carefully, sometimes with great pain, to teach ourselves to let go of this God, because as St. Augustine says in his marvelous book called Confessions, he says, why do I cling so tenaciously to that which I know does not bring me happiness? When I share this thought of Augustine with Buddhists, they say, that's it, Jim, that's it. Why do we cling so tenaciously, so stubbornly to the things that we know won't bring us happiness, and yet we cling to them all the more? Being an atheist, you might say a God-fearing atheist, a practicing atheist, a faithful atheist, is really hard. And I'd rather have more of that in the world than professed atheists or Christians or Buddhists or anybody else making a God out of their own ego, because so much suffering comes into this world when we worship at the altar of our own ego.
The Buddhists believe in samsara, rebirth. The reincarnation is a bad interpretation, a bad translation. The European translate several hundred years ago, which is samsara as a reincarnation. Reincarnated mean have self inside. Understand that? The self actually just change the motivation, change the configuration, change to other aspect. But still, you have self, ego. Okay. But Buddhists don't believe in ego. Buddhists believe that ego is only temporary, because all the affection or condition is always temporary. Nothing is permanent. So we don't believe permanent self. So reincarnation is a wrong translation. Actually, rebirth. Actually, look at our whole universe. As every nature actually resourcing endlessly. Trees, oxygen, water, whatever you see, all resourcing endlessly. It's billions of years been that way. That's why our Earth is still same Earth than 5 billion years ago, because of continuous resourcing. The Buddhists believe that human also resourcing. Understand that? We die, then we born again. Just like nature, because we follow the rule of nature. Nature's resource. We are human. We belong to the mother nature. We not control the nature. We are part of the nature. The whole nature is resourcing endlessly. Therefore, the human also resource, the rebirth. So the life and death, well, Buddhist terms death means not stop or ending. It's a turning point. Just like same driver but different car. You know, you have an old 67 Volkswagen, then you get rid of it because the car is no longer run or is broke down. Then you purchase another one. You have the new driver, you have the same driver but new car. Something like it's just a turning point. So life and death is pretty much like that. You know, you are the same guy maybe because of rebirth, but you're gonna keep switch to the life after life. So I still do believe, but you know, I'm as a scholar and taught many different universities, SC and the Wien and the Loyola. My students they did not believe in the rebirth. See, this is it's a Buddhist people strongly insisted, but many of the young generation they do not believe that. So I agree that because it's not perfectly, it's scientifically, it's actually support those notions. So this is as far as I can explain what the rebirth is, but you know, still not really very concrete. And I do understand that this century's many young generation they don't believe the rebirth. They're perfectly fine, and there's hard work.
Okay, so I have a friend here in town, the Venerable Kusala. Kusala means in Sanskrit, this ancient Buddhist language. Sanskrit is to Buddhism what Greek and Latin is to Christianity. Kusala means skillful. And he's well named, this monk. He's very skillful, very skillful. Okay, so the monk came to class and gave a little presentation. My students then started asking him questions. Okay, it was great. It was wonderful. And Kusala is skillful. And here's an example. One of the students asked, do you believe in God? And Kusala said, well, I don't disbelieve in God. I just don't think belief in God is helpful. And then he said, he kind of got this look on his face, okay? And he turned to me, Father Jim, he said. And I said, oh God, I'm going to catch it now. He said, you believe there's a God? And I said, yeah. And you believe there's a heaven? Yeah. I'll bite. I'll play this game. You also believe there's a hell, right? And I said, yeah. This is in front of my students, okay? Kusala is amazing. Kusala said, and this hell, once you enter hell, there's no getting out, right? It's not like purgatory. No, that's right. If you're in hell for all eternity. And then he said to the students, as a Buddhist, I would say this. If there is anyone, any sentient being suffering in hell, I would rather go to hell to be of aid, to be of some comfort to the person who's suffering in hell, than go to heaven. And I thought, Kusala, you are so wonderfully well named, skillful. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, and of course, literally, I cannot embrace that as a Christian. Okay, but do you see the greatness of Buddhism here? The greatness of Buddhism. That I would go to hell. I could not go to heaven. Heaven wouldn't be heaven for me if I knew that there was someone still suffering in hell. This is a very Kusala in a really down-to-earth way, in a way that is answering the student's question and also tweaking me a little bit on the nose, okay? He's telling out a great Buddhist truth. It's what Buddhists call the practice of the Bodhisattva. The Bodhisattva is the one who can go to nirvana right away, but renounces nirvana in order to work skillfully. There's Kusala, that's his name, to work skillfully, compassionately for all sentient beings who are still suffering and are not ready for nirvana yet. So the Bodhisattva is the one that says, in effect, I will not achieve enlightenment until all sentient beings have achieved enlightenment before me. Do you see how different this is? The whole basic presuppositions are different than Christianity. But as a Christian, do I see the goodness, the greatness of this teaching? Yes, I do. I really do. I get it. I see the greatness. Do you see what I mean when I say that in some respects Christianity and Buddhism are so similar? When I talk about compassion, when I talk about love, agape, when I talk about selflessness, the Buddhists, they know, they're with me, they get it. And when Kusala told my students that he would rather go to hell than go to heaven if he knew that there was just one person suffering in hell, I get that too. I do too. So I guess I should say this. This is not meant to be a retort to Kusala. No. I have the proper response to Kusala is gratitude, because he is, as Kusala means, he is so skillful. It means this: I want to embrace this teaching, the teaching of the Bodhisattva, the teaching of selfless compassion that is my Buddhist friend's practice. I want to embrace that, even though I'm not a Buddhist. How can I make this teaching work for me and my Christian faith? I guess it means, once again, let me see what I can do for those who are suffering here in this world. And as to whether there is a heaven or a hell, I'll let God take care of that.